I work for a company called Backroads, and they are an outdoor adventure company. Mostly bicycle based, but also what we call multi-sport, which is biking, hiking, the occasional river rafting, kayaking, zip lining, you name it, any type of outdoor adventure activity.
So I just think this is a pretty amazing way of making a living. What do you think?
Yeah, it just seems fun.
Yeah, I mean, how many people get to, go to a job like that? Having adventures on a daily basis when they go to work?
Not many. The applications this year were, 2,400 people applied and 40 positions were available.
40 positions!
So
Wow.
It's quite the coveted job.
Wow.
That's not saying it's not very hard work. It's incredibly hard work, and there's your ups and downs, just like any job, but overall I really enjoy it.
Right. Now, what inspired you to apply to Backroads, and what was it like landing that position? Like, what did you have to do to basically get that position?
Well, it actually kind of landed in my lap. I was moonlighting as a model for another outdoor women's adventure apparel catalog called Title IX, and I was modeling with a fellow, another model, and we just started shooting the breeze, and I asked her what she did, and she said, oh, well, I lead adventure tours all over the world, and my jaw dropped, and I thought, want. And so we just started chatting about it. It wasn't really the right time in my life to take the position, but about 8 months later, she contacted me and said that they were hiring, and I wrote in my application, and then went to what we call a hiring event and had to convince the hiring team there why I would be an excellent Backroads leader, which was very intense. And then after that, I found out I got hired.
They want to check your personality, make sure that you have the right type of personality to endure some of the things that might happen on a trip like that.
Right.
But they also test your skills, and so you have to be able to, change tires on a bike within a certain amount of minutes and so forth. So tell us about some of the mental and physical things that you had to do.
Well, the physical things definitely were very intense. We went on a mock camping trip and had to bike a certain amount of miles a day and keep up and not fall behind and be able to endure between 50 and 80 miles a day, and then after that still be chipper and able to socialize and set up your tent and cook dinner and all that stuff. So bike skills, you had to know how to change a tire in less than 2 minutes. You had to be relatively capable of doing various bike mechanic skills like changing cables and adjusting brakes and getting the gear ratios correct. But then emotionally, you also had to understand how to deal with a certain level of clientele. We have pretty high-end customers, and they expect a lot of us and a lot of the trip. So they would often put us in different scenarios where they would pretend like they were a very upset guest, and say, for example, at a restaurant in a villa in Italy, and how we would handle an angry guest. So they kind of put us through the ringer on a lot of things.
Wow.
And after training, I was cross-eyed with different scenarios and terrified of these so-called guests. And then
Possible guests from hell.
thinking of all the different scenarios that would happen, and then actually getting out in the field, you realize that people are just people wanting to have a good time, and generally if you do your prep work and you have everything relatively dialed on the trip, people are very, very happy. So the grumpy guest is still this kind of mythical thing.
So they give you kind of worst case scenarios so
Yeah.
that you're ready for whatever could happen.
Exactly.
And it's probably part of it is mental, to sort of weed out the people that couldn't handle the idea of dealing with that sort of situation too, maybe.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what is your typical day like when you're on a trip?
Oh, usually get up between 6 and 7 and hit the coffee immediately, get the coffee in the blood and then usually depending on what the day has in store, you're prepping bikes or you're prepping picnics, prepping food for picnics. And then depending on what the activity is, like for example, the first day on the trip that I just came off of in Santa Cruz, we go on a hike and then we come back and we have a tour at a goat dairy in Pescadero called Harley Farms. And we kind of meet the goats and we get to pet them and we make some cheese and eat their award-winning cheese, and then we have a picnic at the goat dairy and then hop on our bikes and bike along beautiful coast of Highway 1. So I'm biking with them, checking in, making sure everything's good with their bikes. And then meanwhile, someone's dropping off all the luggage at the hotel and making sure everything's groovy and good to go at the hotel. And then they show up and then we have a nice, beautiful dinner, 3-course meal at the hotel. And I'm just making sure everything's going well with the servers and the food is good and the timing is right. Have a glass of wine and go to bed.
Go ahead, Liv.
So do you stay at the same hotel or will you move different places?
Yeah, we stay at the same hotel. The
Okay.
leaders stay at the same hotel. And we stay at 3 different hotels on this trip.
So your role in this whole thing is really kind of complex because you have to be really on top of it physically and be right there to be sort of the cheerleader and know exactly where you're going and be the leader and being able to guide people on what to do, but also on sort of an emotional level. If somebody were to get hurt or if they were just to become tired or cranky for whatever reason, you have to be sensitive to that and be prepared to accommodate them in whatever way they need. And they want to have fun, but they want to be pampered the way they want to be pampered, right?
Noticing all of that. Yes, I wear many hats, and sometimes when I go to sleep, I'm shocked at how many people I am in my own head, from emotional to physical to mechanic to cook to I wear many hats throughout the day, and it's a lot of hard work, but very rewarding too. When you see someone that isn't necessarily very active, and you encourage them to do the long option and get to the top of that mountain, and they get to the top and they're just blown away by the beauty and so grateful that you encouraged them and helped them up there, and they didn't think they could do it, and they didn't know how rewarding it can be to work really hard to get to the top of something, and they're really grateful for that. And so that's the time when I'm really in love with my job.
Do you think that sounds like a fun type of job to have, Olivia?
For sure.
But it's got to be also really physically and mentally exhausting because the guests, when they get back to the hotel, it's time for them to relax, and you basically get to you're still on. You're on until you go to bed. You get to go back, do the quick change, show up at dinner, and then be the entertainer again at dinner.
Yeah.
And you don't get to rest until everybody else is tucked away nice in their beds, right?
Yeah, it's true. Although I don't want to complain too much because there are way more moments in my day that I'm really happy and really grateful for my job that far outweighs the times when I'm exhausted and frustrated, and the good far outweighs the bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you don't just keep this into Santa Cruz. You've had the opportunity to travel a lot of different places. So where have you been with Backroads?
Mostly in North America. The company's throughout the world, but I've worked mostly in North America, including Hawaii, as well as Costa Rica. So in North America, I've been in California, all through California, which is really cool because I've done a lot of traveling internationally, but not much in California and in Northern California. So I also, the first 2 years I worked for the company, I was out in Yellowstone, Tetons area in the Rockies. So that just blew my mind of the beauty out there. And I had never been to Yellowstone, never been to Jackson, and just discovering a new area that was so beautiful and right here.
What type of skills would they need to have a job like this? Or how would they go about trying to prepare for doing something like this?
Man, I would say you need a fair amount of just being fit, for one, being able to sit on a bike seat for 50 plus miles a day, 6 days in a row. You need to be able to hike at least 10 miles in a day comfortably. You need to have a logistical brain that can figure out different logistics and flow for the day for 24 people, and hotels and vans and luggage and food. And you also need to be a pleasant person to be around and authentically enjoy other people's company and be curious about other people. You need to be a people person.
But also curious about your surroundings, right?
Yeah, and also a willingness to travel for sure, willing to live out of a bag for a while.